investing in the Central Region was having come here almost over 30 years ago. And
Oh, you can hear that. 30 years ago.
plus.
And we're still bouncing back.
And it was inspired that when I came here, Ghana was not the #1 target for diaspora tourism. In fact, it used to be Banjul, Gambia, Dakar, Senegal, and Ghana was kind of off the map. And when those who were brave enough to come to Ghana, Central Region was off the map. Someone described to me one time at a tourism agency in New York that there were no rooms to stay in Cape Coast and Elmina. And I said, no, that's not so. I'm just from Ghana, and I spent all my time in the Central Region. At that time, we only had the Elmina Motel and the Savoy Hotel in Cape Coast. And so the inspiration came, some of us who were traveling at that time said that there's opportunity in tourism. And I think that it was myself and One Africa at that time who decided to invest in the beachfront tourism. And many people at that time were afraid of the beach. People wanted to ask me a question, why do you want to buy land on the beach? Only the fishermen are near the sea. And I said, well, you don't know the value of what this is. So in that respect, ultimately 30 years later, not exactly the whole 30 years, but here I am in the Central Region. I'm doing business, and I see now everyone sees the value of beachfront and doing business. And I thought the Central Region always had the richness of the culture and the tradition of the people. When I came, I attached myself to the Traditional Council, to the Nananum here, to the people of the Central Region. I fell in love with the culture that's being offered. Being from New York, I wasn't particularly looking for metropolitan life in the fast life that was offered in Accra. I wanted the serene area that the Central Region had to offer. And so that was my choice. And I see that many of our colleagues that return from the diaspora also find that same rich opportunity in the Central Region in terms of its potential. We have a significant number of developmental and infrastructural challenges here, but many of us have chosen to deal with that challenge, in exchange for the peace that this area offers. And I can say that, again, capitalizing on the sub-theme here, the diaspora impact, that the diaspora has made a significant initial investment in building up the confidence of tourism potential in the Central Region. As I mentioned, my own business, Mabel's Table in One Africa, we also have the Almond Tree, we also have Alberta's Beach Resort, we also have Asasi Pa, we also have a number of hospitality, restaurant industries that are people from the diaspora, the historic diaspora. If we were to mention the contemporary diaspora, we have to add places like Coconut Grove, we have to add Elmina Bay, we have to add Fairhill Guest House. So we have over a dozen hospitality industries in Cape Coast and Elmina area alone. That's just guest house and hotels. Sauna Lodge also on that list. And then we have other complementary investments that we do in the area in terms of education and other things that are not necessarily dealing with tourism, but it does show that we as a community in the diaspora have recognized the opportunities of investment and have taken the lead in spite of the slow trail of regularizing our stay here and citizenship and residency. So of course, again, these are significant factors because all of them have a impact on investment and the level of confidence in investment. So in a very quick nutshell, we saw the potential and helped to develop this potential. Hopefully, it's encouraged many others to do the same.
So that was Rabbi Cohen. This is a segment that we call the investor's story. Very touching experience. 30 years, that's 3 decades, and still moving on. I think that is great. Before I come back to you, let me go to Frederick Akwa, Ecofi Fruits and Juices. Tell us the story.
Well, thank you very much. So, Ecofi Fruits and Juices Limited was also born out of the fact that we saw opportunity in the Central Region. For a region that is strategically sited, located, when I say sited, as if somebody deliberately for you. Yes, with equal proximity to ports. So we look at Takrady, we look at the Tema port, we look at the Takrady airport, we look at the Accra International Airport, Kotoka. We look at even the proximity to Kumasi Airport. That shows that where we are sited is very strategic and ordinarily should be the best point for business opportunities, agro-processing, etc. However, when a list of poor regions of Ghana, anytime I get the word poor, and I was telling the Honorable Regional Minister, the moment she mentioned poor districts and central is part, you wonder why it is so. But it is out of all of these that we see opportunity. Before we got into Kofi, although Kofi has been growing pineapples for centuries maybe, but then to think of a Kofi as a district coming up with now an almost $50 million project was something that a few years ago was like plucking oranges from the sky. Right. But we put it there because we saw the opportunity there. We saw also the kind of rich resources the central region itself has. So all of this, although we are called a Kofi Fruits and Juices Limited, our actual name in terms of the strength of our name in terms of the central region is the fruits and juices. What we have done in the Kofi, people just see it as a pineapple factory. But what we have put there is to put up a multi-food processing factory that processes fruits from the region. So that also creates other opportunities. We're also using the Kofi as a hub or as a starting point for industrial growth of the region. So we're excited to be part of the general industrialization of the central region. The Kofi itself, apart from doing food processing, is also doing a lot of consultancy in industrialization. And we have always said that, look here, since I was a kid, I am central region, not born here, but I came here at a very young age. I've stayed a greater part of my growing up life in the central region. I schooled from primary school through secondary school to university to the master's level here in Cape. So we look at it and say, look here, we can pull all of these resources back. We know we have a human resource, very rich. If you go outside the region, you find a lot of central region people doing stuff there. There may be issues back home, so we want to look at it and champion a general industrialization drive of the region. And when all of these come in fully, our request, and this I've heard for the past few years, the request for airports, the request for harbor. Look here, I tell my people that if we are able to industrialize the region, these ones, they come almost naturally, because once there's processing, goods would have to move, raw materials would have to come in, and these are facilities that are needed to do that. Kofi itself is also, as I mentioned earlier, doing some sort of consultancy for other companies. So once we came up there, we are using the pool mechanism to bring other companies here. And for the diaspora world, this is another avenue to invest. For example, there's a company coming up in Abra Sebu Kamakese. So during the presentation, I heard something on citrus. Yes. So there's a company, Central Citrus, that we brought up. We came up with and we consulted for them. They are almost through with their factory. They are going to process citrus oil. Interestingly, until we got here, I didn't know this. When we were kids, there was this oil, or we call it liquid, but it's oil, in the peel of orange or tangerine, for example, that when we were playing mischief, we go to squeeze in other people's eyes. This is citrus oil. Very expensive, and it goes out there in the world market. Currently, what we have is that for all the citrus that we have in Asebu and its environs, so they have buyers for the peel, not for the orange. So you go to some farms and you are told that you can eat as many of the oranges as possible, but you cannot take one piece of the peel away. So this peel is dried, and you know it is trash. It's trash. So somebody comes and says, this 4 sack I'll give you X amount, maybe some small poultry sum. But then for them it's okay because this is trash. So they take away this dry, go to re-moisture it, and do the extraction of the oil. So you see there's a lot of value, but we're giving it away as if we're giving away trash. And we are satisfied with whatever we have. The pork we throw away. So what the Kofi did was to link up with this company, for the company to supply the Kofi with the pork, and the company itself to do the extraction of the oil in Abrasibu Pamates it used to be a village, but I can say that very soon it's going to be a town called Onyaba, next to Asebo. The Kofi itself, so I just want to mention a few of the opportunities that the Kofi is bringing up to the central region in terms of this pool mechanism that I mentioned. So Kofi itself processes pineapple. The reason why we do pineapple as a base is that pineapple is an all year round crop, so you grow it every day. So if you want to do juices, this is another hint I can give you. If you want to do juices, your best bet is to make pineapple your base. So that's why we have pineapple as a base. And because we are not storing any of the produce that we process, as they come in season, we add it to the pineapple and process. That's why we have pineapple and ginger, we have pineapple and citrus, we have pineapple and watermelon, and all of that variants. That is what we have. Going forward, we have seen a lot of interest in coming to the central region, and we are leading the drive for that kind of industrialization. There's a company that I spoke to last week that is also willing to site it, but I wanted that one to be in Cape Coast for obvious reasons. It's this sewing factory that is going to do a lot of the working outfits for the factories coming up, and it's going to employ up to 600 people. Wow. I want that one to be sited in Cape Coast. I'm bringing them to Cape Coast. Okay, so I will later on the regional.
So students, did you hear that? So after here, please take their contacts, because that is where you're going to get a practical attachment, and some of you may end up getting jobs. Before I come to you, please let me go to, you come there. You are Mr. Pineapple, so let's go to Mr. Cassava. Banchikro, Sabe, tell us your story.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Banchikro story tends to highlight the importance of investment sustainability in this entire conversation. Banchikro thrives within the cassava space, and we came to Central Region because under the Presidential Special Initiative by then presidents before, they established a factory in Bodrasse called the Bodrasse Starch Factory, right? Ayesu Starch Factory. And at the time, the factory came up with different challenges, and one of the key challenges was the sustainable supply of feedstock to the factory. By that, what I mean is, how was the factory getting cassava being supplied to it in a sustainable manner so that industrialization does a 360? And many years down the line, I mean, when initially was established, I was still a young man, still in school. But many years down the line, the factory still had that challenge. And when I delved into cassava and I realized the enormous potential of cassava, then I felt that what role could I play in that entire ecospace, and how could my role affect the entire cassava value chain? So we started off very small, humble beginnings, somewhere in a town called Uguakum in the Gomwa East district. And we started with about 8 acres of cassava. We moved on to 20 acres, then we moved on to 40, from 40 to 80, 80 to 200, then we expanded. Currently we are doing almost 1,000 acres. You know, and
we need to plan for that. That's what we are talking about, innovation and ingenuity. We did not even wait for a white collar job, but a young man going to Banchi Cassava. Cassava was really, please let's proceed.
Right, and people will ask why cassava? You know that cassava is an industrial crop that has multiple derivatives. We are talking about native starch. The application of native starch cuts across various industries. Big pharma uses native starch for almost every single drug they produce. The food processing industries use native starch in every single food processing that you can think about. You name it. You know, and it's quite interesting that when you look at the cassava belt, West Africa, almost all the West African countries fall within the cassava belt. 10 degrees north, 10 degrees south of the equator. But funny enough, Southeast Asia has harnessed the potential of cassava, such that it's contributing enormously to countries within the Southeast Asia region, from Thailand to Indonesia to Vietnam. And I'm asking myself that why haven't we harnessed that potential? Central region is the third largest producer of cassava in the country. And like other speakers spoke about, the land available for agricultural production in Central region is over 1 million hectares. Then how do we harness that potential? I mean, currently at Banchikom, we've established a high quality cassava plant somewhere in Jukwa, which also is naturally gluten free, the cassava starch, so it becomes a premium product. And currently we are supplying to people like Olam, people like ABL, and we are creating these very important value chains. Along the way, we've had a lot of enormous challenges. At a point in time, somewhere about 4 or 5 years ago, we realized that Ayensu starch became defective. They had issues with their motors for processing, and we're looking for different places to sell our cassava. At the time, we had about 200 acres of cassava in the ground, and a young man who had just put all his investments in cassava. I remember around that time, that's when I met Kobe, you know, and that was before the inception of the Kumfi. And I was running around like, who buy my cassava? Trying to find different small and medium-sized processors. And along the way, I realized that data was not readily available within the space. You know, and interestingly, I studied computer science in school, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't we pivot and harness the potential of data? So then, that's how Banchikom came about. Then we pivoted at the time, 4 years ago, and I renamed the company Banchikom, which tends to epitomize my ideology of trying to create a cassava space, a cassava village, which is data-driven. So how do we connect the different value chain actors using data? How do we make those connectivity efficient and effective? Where is farmer X? If he's an outgrower, where is his location? Why? Can we use that location to establish the business sense in supplying cassava from point A to point B? You know, and how do we cluster these farmers according to data? And in doing so, we harness the real potential of the entire ecosystem. So at Banchikom, currently that's what we are doing. We have outgrowers under our scheme. Ayensu is one of our major off-takers. We are trying to control the entire value chain in the sense that how do we bring on board every single stakeholder within the value chain, and how do we harness that potential together? Because the truth is, a couple of weeks ago I was in Nigeria, and we're having a conversation of establishing an entire cassava block along the sub-region, you know, and the conversation was quite interesting because Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world, but guess what? They don't export none of the produce. You know, and in this country, for example, cassava produces ethanol, and our ethanol needs about 120 million liters. When COVID hit, something interesting. We had only one cassava factory in Ghana that was churning out cassava to ethanol. And because of the constraints on global transportation and logistics, we couldn't import ethanol. And when it came to COVID, sanitizers, whatnot, everything was ethanol based. So guess what? Every single company in Ghana, from LS Chemist, Kina Pharma, all those guys came to deposit money at one of my off-takers and said, every single drop of ethanol you produce, we are buying in advance. That was a real opportunity for government should have stepped in to really provide local investments and support so we can become self-sufficient of internal in this country.
That's right.
But we don't have the key. You know, quite
That's the
interesting.
problem.
You know, I mean, there are various conversations about the economic cartel in Ghana and other people benefiting and whatnot. But the truth is that with investments, even in a central area, my experience, it's important for us to highlight the sustainability components, because if an investor comes in like I did at the time, and we don't have the support and satellite systems in place to support that investor, you know, and you realize that prospectively there's no sustainability, and the sustainability is what drives further investments. So at Machiko, we are doing the best that we can, and we are looking for every single support that we can get. Thank you.
Oh, interesting. Not only Cassava, you bring money out of pocket. I believe that you can put it in a fund for others to also enjoy. I think that's the real experience. Is very interesting.